Well, well, well. What have we here? Looks like Justin Trudeau just resigned. We're going to talk about that. Is this a possible black swan event for Canada? I would suggest that perhaps, just perhaps, it is a black swan event. You might be thinking, but Shane, everything on your channel is a black swan event. This is true. This is true. But I usually try and present the case from the perspective of a black swan event, so that if it happens, you can come back to this channel and say, oh, wow, Shane was talking about this on his channel and we didn't see it coming. Crazy. So let's dive into this a little bit. Let's dive into it. We're going to listen a little bit to his resigning speech, his resignation speech. I listened to it already, but it's hey, where did it go? It's coming. I'll grab it. I'll grab it again. Just a little bit of fluff in it. Just a little bit of fluff. Let me see if I can find it here. Where did it go? Let's see. Of course, right when I want to find it. Here it is. Here comes. Here comes. I think it's good to have some context here. There we go.
And the need to stand up for Canadians, to protect Canadians in their interests and continue to fight for the economy is something that everyone in this government will be singularly focused on. Je peux souligner que, évidemment, les règles et les conditions du leadership du Parti libéral vont être discutées dans les semaines à venir. Mais le gouvernement qui a été élu pour protéger les Canadiens et leurs intérêts dans un monde très complexe, qui a été élu le plus récemment en 2021, va continuer ce travail avec un focus et une emphase.
I picked a good time for us to go to his speech when it's all in French. I forgot most of my audience does not speak French. So we'll come back. We'll come back to him. I'm just going to leave him in the background. Let's just see if he's talking about something in English now. Let's see here.
Fine, why not earlier?
Oh, he just walks away.
I've been inspired.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
The generosity and the determination of Canadians. It is the driving force of every single day I have the privilege of serving in this office. That is why, since 2015, I've fought for this country, for you, to strengthen and grow the middle class. Why we rallied to support each other through the pandemic, to advance reconciliation, to defend free trade on this continent, to stand strong with Ukraine and our democracy, and to fight climate change and get our economy ready for the future. We are at a critical moment in the world. Mes chers Canadiens, à chaque matin, je me suis réveillé en tant que
Now he's back to French. Okay, we'll come back to him in English. So he's done a lot for our country. He's done so much for our country, so much for it. But I wanted to approach this, and we're going to go back to his speech right away here. I want to make sure that you guys get it on here, because it's important to hear this guy as he talks about resigning and all this kind of stuff. And then I'll gather my thoughts. Then we'll talk about why I think this is a potential black swan event. Maybe I could just put him down below. I'll just minimize the volume. That way we can hear him when he speaks English.
et pour lutter contre les changements climatiques et préparer l'économie de l'avenir.
There.
Nous traversons vraiment un moment critique.
So one of the things that we have to think about is
My friends, as you all know, I'm
here
a
comes. Here comes. He's a
The
fighter.
bone in my
Here he
body
comes.
has always told me to fight because I care deeply about Canadians. I care deeply about this country, and I will always be motivated by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And the fact is, despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history. That's why this morning I advised the Governor General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today.
He didn't mention his wife because I guess he doesn't have his wife anymore. So family meaning kids. This is where he gets his consultation from. This is where he gets his advices from, is his kids. No offense to his kids, but I don't think he has any friends. I'm just, once he's done here, who's going to hire him for a job? What kind of a job is he going to get? Is he going to go back to drama school? Crazy. All right, let's continue here.
Je me suis toujours battu parce que je
Back
me
to
soucie
French again.
profondément des Canadiens. Je serai toujours motivé parce qu'il est dans le meilleur intérêt des Canadiens. Et le fait est,
It's
malgré tous les
it's a
efforts
short
déployés
speech.
par
Obviously, it
la
goes
parole,
back and forth between
le
French and
Parlement
English.
est paralysé
This is
depuis
the difference
mois.
between you Americans.
Après ce qui a
You just
été
have
la
everything in
plus longue
English.
session de Parlement minoritaire dans l'histoire de notre pays. C'est pourquoi ce matin,
Yeah, go back to
j'ai
Cuba.
rencontré la gouverneure générale pour lui faire savoir que nous avions besoin d'une nouvelle session du
I
Parlement.
wonder if he speaks.
Elle a accédé à ma
What do
demande.
Cubans speak? Is it Spanish? Is it
L'ensemble
Portuguese?
sera donc prorogé
I think it's
jusqu'au
Spanish.
29 mars. En temps des fêtes, j'ai également eu l'occasion de
His
réfléchir
Trudeau's idea is he thinks he's done so much for us in a good way,
à notre avenir.
but we know
Tout au long de ma carrière, tout le succès
that
que
he has actually basically wrecked our
j'ai
country.
eu à leur soutien
He just said his government was paralyzed for the past 8 months or so. What have you been doing for the past 8 months? For the government to be paralyzed as a minority, do you know that you used to have the majority and now you have a minority, and that's why you're in the position that you're in? That people are not feeling confident in your leadership anymore? This is why you're here. This is why the government's paralyzed, is because of your leadership. That's pretty obvious.
Stay organized. I've experienced this myself, and it's called chronic impulse control, where you prioritize.
Moi, que si je dois me concentrer sur des batailles internes, je peux pas être la meilleure option.
What is FC? What's FC? Oh, yeah, FC. Fidel Castro. That's his father. If you guys don't know this, it'd be interesting for Trudeau to have a DNA test and watch it be like 50% Cuban. Be crazy, because when you look at his pictures with Fidel Castro, identical. He looks like a clone. Just put a beard on him, and he looks exactly like his father, Fidel Castro. Does not look anything like Pierre Trudeau. Nothing like him. Zero. And in fact, some people liked him. I actually didn't mind the way that he carried himself, but let's just jump into it now. He's English now.
A new prime minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do for Canadians. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to questions, starting with Laurence Martin, House of Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Vous vouliez le faire, ce combat contre Pierre Poilievre, des batailles.
Okay, we'll come back to this. So, Trudeau, let's look at this from the angle of what can cause why do I think this resignation of Trudeau could cause a black swan event. So I have some notes here. So let's just have a look at it. Let's have a look. So the biggest reason why I think this could be a potential black swan is the idea that our government can actually collapse. There could be like a vote of no confidence. You can't get anything done. And all of a sudden, our government agency as a whole will collapse. While this has never been done before, we don't know how bad it is right now. You don't know how bad it is until something like this happens. And then now you start to see things falling through the cracks. So we're going to talk about what could trigger a government collapse. Well, the minority government instability. And right now, he just said it. Our government's paralyzed right now as a minority. Nothing gets done. Nothing gets passed through. So in a minority government, the ruling party depends on other parties for support. And this is key. This is much different than the United States. Much different. So Trudeau needs the support of the Conservative Party, the NDP, all the other parties. And if he can't work with them, there's going to be a vote of no confidence in the government, because basically what the other political parties are saying is we can't work under these conditions. Nothing gets done. And then they just have a snap election. But in the midst of that, we're actually quite vulnerable. So in a minority government, the ruling party depends on other parties for support. If this support is withdrawn through a vote of non-confidence, and this is what I believe is going to happen shortly, just a guess, like he said in March, they have till March, but I think they can do a vote of no confidence, my understanding anyway, at any time. But maybe there's a certain day that they have to wait. And isn't it interesting that it's on January 6th as well? I've been keeping my eye on January 6th, saying something crazy is going to happen in the world on January 6th, but I didn't think it was going to be here. I was thinking somewhere else. So again, if the support is withdrawn through a vote of non-confidence, the government could collapse, leading to the dissolution of Parliament or a snap election. And I think that's what's going to happen, is a snap election. You can have widespread political scandals. So a major scandal involving high-ranking officials could erode trust in the government and trigger mass resignations or a collapse of public support, meaning others can come out of the woodworks here, trying to vie for position as the next leader for the Liberal government. And deals could be made in the background saying, I got enough junk on you guys that if you don't vote for me or if you don't support me as the Liberal leader, I'm going to expose a lot of this craziness. And I think people are lining up to talk about how bad of a leader Trudeau has been. And it's almost like a sigh of relief on Trudeau. It was like, oh, I made it through the holidays, and we knew he was going to do this. We knew he was going to do this. There was already rumblings at Christmas time that this guy's going to resign. And he just basically looks like a fresher man now. He's like so relieved of the burden of actually not knowing what he's doing for the last 10 plus years. It's a widespread political scandal. Also, there could be national or during the midst of a national or global crisis. Like we also know there's a transition going on with the United States of America with Donald Trump coming in, being sworn in on January 20th, 14 days from now. Don't think he isn't just salivating right now. And who knows if this was some kind of a deal as well, where Trudeau goes all the way to Mar-a-Lago in Florida, has a conference with Trump, and Trump's like, why don't you guys just cave in and just become the 51st state? I'll make you the governor. Why don't you just make sense to us as Americans, just be the 51st? All of a sudden, he's resigning as the Prime Minister of Canada. What is at foot? What is going on here? That's the question. Let's see here. So let's just say you have an overwhelming crisis. You can have an economic collapse because we are fragile right now. You can have a war, an environmental catastrophe. If we have environmental catastrophe, like let's just say we had a winter storm that's so severe in Quebec, you're going to have to be able to handle that as a government. And now each province can do their own thing. But if the parliament is kind of frozen, it's kind of hard to pass anything through. And we haven't even got into any of the crazy stuff. This is just normal stuff that the government normally takes care of. So if you have disputes now over the federal government versus provinces, so now perhaps you could see provinces like Alberta, we always want to be independent. Quebec always wants to be independent. I'm sure BC does as well. But if you get a government that is stagnant or paralyzed, this could cause provinces to push for a little bit more autonomy. They could start pushing things through and say, we would like to be a little bit more autonomous because you guys can't even get things together. Civil unrest. So prolonged and widespread protests, for example, over Indigenous rights, economic inequality, environmental policies, could destabilize the government if protests paralyze critical infrastructure or garner international attention. Again, this is if the government is paralyzed right now. Trudeau just said it. Nothing's going to happen until March. You think people are going to start working on your behalf right now? Or do you think this is going to be almost like a land grab where people are trying to jockey for position so that they could be the next leader of the Liberal Party? And they would cut each other's throats, I'm sure, to become the next leader. No rules. So now we are potentially more vulnerable to cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, or other forms of external interference that could disrupt elections or create divisions that destabilize governance. Now, if I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. We're quite vulnerable right now. We're very vulnerable. People sneaking across the border from the U.S., all this kind of stuff. We're held accountable to all that kind of stuff. Don't think the United States isn't looking at us and going, wow, they don't even have a government. This is craziness. So what would a government collapse look like if it were to happen? And you got to understand, when you're talking about a black swan event, the first thing that you have to say is it will never happen here. Okay? That's the seeding of that's basically laying fantastic nutrition in a lawn, in the ground, in dirt. Whenever you say something like, it could never happen here, our government would never, ever, ever collapse. That's where a black swan comes in the 1 percentile, even less than 1%. So if there's less than 1% of a chance that a government can collapse, that's where you look for black swans, inside there. You don't look for it on the opposite side of that. You look for it when it could happen any day, and thousands of people are saying, oh yeah, okay, look, this is going to happen, or whatever it is. Let's say the Oilers are up 6-0 in a hockey game, game 7, and everybody's saying, yeah, it looks like they're going to win, and they win. That's not a black swan event. It's when people are saying the opposite. Use a sports illustration, but I'm trying to drive it home that black swans live in the spaces where people are saying they can never live. That's where they breed. That's their breeding ground, is to live inside that. So if you were to say 9/11 could never happen, nobody in their right mind would ever jump into a plane, hijack a plane to smash it into the World Trade Center. You would be right until you're wrong. So I'm wrong until I'm right with regards to a government collapse. That's the nature, that's the DNA of a black swan. So if you're uncomfortable with me talking about things that may not happen, but there's a tiny little percentage, you're on the wrong channel, because this is all about black swans and how they permeate, how they spread like a cancer. And this is the fertile environment where black swans live in when a prime minister resigns after firing his what was she, Freeland, the finance administrator, fired her. Don't think she's got some stuff on him as well. Don't think she wasn't happy about him firing her. She might be the next political leader for the Liberal Party. Don't know. But I think people could respect her a little bit more than this guy, even though on the conservative side, we're like, it's all the same. It's all the same pool. But something changed when Trudeau fired Freeland. You could almost see the dominoes begin to fall. And I would argue it went all the way back to when his wife decided to leave him. Now, I'm not saying every marriage is perfect, that you have to have a perfect marriage all the time and stuff, but he is our leader and his wife ditched him. So if his wife doesn't have confidence in her husband as the leader of Canada, what should that say to you that voted for him? His wife ditched him. So that's not good at all. It's not a good thing. It's not a good sign. And then a year, 2 years later, fires Freeland, and it seemed like the dominoes just started after that. He thought about it. He looked at his kids and went, this is not worth it. This is not worth it. Clearly, my own party doesn't like me anymore. They don't want me to be your friends anymore. They never give me the ball. And when I go overseas to the G7 countries or summits, I go to shake people's hand like, Xi Jinping, he doesn't want to shake my hand. I look over at Trudeau or at Trump. He doesn't want to shake my hand. I look over at the French Prime Minister and he looks away from me. Nobody wants to be my friends anymore. And now my political party doesn't want to be my friends. So I quit. I'm taking my ball and going home. I quit. He's a quitter. He is a quitter. He says he's a fighter. I get it. But I think it's almost like, imagine Mike Tyson coming into the ring and punching you a couple times in the face so that your chiclets fall out. And you look down and you pick up your chiclets and you're like, dang, those are my incisor teeth that are on the mat. I need those. This is not worth it. And he's coming in to bite my ear. I'm out. I'm tapping out. I don't need this stuff anymore. That's how I feel Trudeau is. He's tapping out. He's like, nobody's on my side. I can't influence my own political party. I can't influence any political party. I'm out. I'm out. So goodbye. Good riddance. I don't think he's going to get a job anywhere. I really don't. And he probably doesn't need to work anymore. That's the sad thing. So what could a government collapse look like? A Canadian government collapse could unfold in stages. So political gridlock. If no party commands enough support to pass legislation, Parliament could become paralyzed. We mentioned that. Essential government functions could slow down or stop, leading to delays in public services. We are getting into bad weather now in Canada. This is when it gets really cold. A vote of non-confidence could topple the ruling party, forcing the Governor General to call a new election. This could invite the opposition party to form a government, and I think this is what's going to happen. Public discontent, escalating protest strikes, regional defiance could weaken the central government's ability to function. So what could also happen is a snap election or prolonged interim rule, meaning Trudeau could stay on for as long as necessary to oversee his political party and say, I'm going to make sure and take care of Canada until you guys find a proper leader. And then I am going to officially resign. So that could take days, weeks, months. So provinces like Alberta or Quebec can insert more autonomy, which I mentioned, refusing to cooperate with federal mandates. This can include refusing federal laws, blocking federal agencies from operating within their borders. This could also increase civil order. We're talking about the collapse of a government. What does this look like? Public unrest or strikes could paralyze infrastructure. For example, transportation, energy, creating cascading effects on the economy. We're already hurting. Prices are already through the roof. And the one platform that Trudeau stood on, the one promise that he made in front of everyone was he was going to increase our deficit. So good job. You stuck with it. You kept your word. You increased our deficit. Everything is more expensive, and now you're leaving. You're quitting. Good riddance. So if we had a government collapse, we can also face economic impact, market volatility, a decline in foreign investment. You think companies are going to want to invest in our country now? Man, supply chain disruptions if the governance paralyzes affects trade agreements or key sectors, aka Donald Trump with his 25% tariffs. You don't think that's going to affect us? I'm telling you, man, we are in a storm right now. So mistrust in leadership could exacerbate societal divisions, leading to protests, strikes, or even violent clashes. Can you imagine a violent clash in Canada? I can't. If we had something like that, it'll be very similar to, what a coincidence, Trudeau causing a problem where all these truckers go to Ottawa and Trudeau summons the Emergencies Act. Nobody's ever done that before. He's got a lot of firsts. He's got a lot of firsts. We could have strain on public services. Paralyzation in government decision making could affect healthcare, education, and infrastructure maintenance. Risk of regional fragmentation. Again, back to Quebec and Alberta. This could be a push for them. I'm in Alberta, for independence or greater autonomy, threatening national unity. So how do you mitigate the risk of collapse? Well, Canada can take proactive steps to reduce the risk of a government. How? By strengthening parliamentary processes. So you can improve collaboration between parties. If you don't have collaboration between these parties, you're not going to get anything done. And we know this. This is kind of basics 101. But you need to have transparency on all levels. And if there is none, everybody's going to basically just be eating each other. We haven't even talked about cybersecurity. We are so vulnerable right now to cybersecurity, it's not even funny. We do a lot of messing around with AI, and I think one of these days this can backfire on our country. Last time I checked, we were leading when it came to cybersecurity and AI technology. We were in the top 5, top 6, maybe even arguably top 7. Ukraine, Israel, and United States are the top 3. And then the others just kind of juggle for position. Those are the top 3. Israel, Ukraine, and United States of America. And then you can argue China is next. And I think they're going to overtake us any minute, any second. Crisis preparedness. We can't prepare for anything. So you have to think that way and say, what happens if we have a crisis? We got to plan it. So you have to create frameworks to handle emergencies such as economic shocks, which are coming, pandemics. They're trying to push a pandemic in the States right now, or natural disasters. Like, we're ripe for a black swan event here in Canada. So again, how likely is it for our Canadian government to collapse? It's unlikely. It's unlikely. But again, as I mentioned earlier, black swans live in the unlikely, in the unforeseeable. That's where they live. That's where they hang out. So you can't rule it out. And again, Canada has never experienced a government collapse. The closest we came is Joe Clark in 1977. And then I think it was actually during Stephen Harper's minority government in 2008. I think there was a vote of no confidence for Stephen Harper, and I thought he did a fantastic job. So again, this is all a hypothetical situation here. Like, what I'm talking about is all hypothetical. But if it happens, you're talking chaos in Canada, and I think this could have ripple effects into the United States, as in they will treat us differently. They'll treat us differently. Most likely with no respect, for one. If you want respect, you got to have a government in power. If you don't have a government, if you don't have anybody ruling the country, who are they going to talk to? You think Trump's going to want to talk to Freeland You think she's going to go toe to toe? I think our friend Pierre Poilievre is going to be our next prime minister. It just seems like that would be like it's rare unless the Liberal government does something miraculous, turns something around, but I don't think it'll happen with Freeland. I think they have to have some mystery guy show up. That's the only thing that I could see. You need somebody that's a little bit charismatic, because apparently the young people like to vote for people that are good looking and charismatic. They don't care if they can count 2 + 2. No offense to the young people, but I've encountered countless of young people that said they like Trudeau because he's good looking. Well, there you go. That's what you get. That's what you get. You know who would have been a fantastic prime minister, I think, would have been Preston Manning. But you know what people said? They didn't like his voice. It was too scratchy. So that's why they didn't vote for him. So this is on us. This is our fault why we're here. We pick people that look nice. We don't pick people that are smart. We pick people that look nice, and if they have a scratchy voice, we vote them out. It's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah, like 10 years ago, people were saying Trudeau was good looking. Trudeau's good looking. They're saying it. I've heard it. I've heard people say, yeah, he's actually not too bad looking. And I'm like, are you insane? Are you insane? That's your criteria? All right, so let's go back. Let's jump into some of the comments here, and then we'll go back to Trudeau speaking here, and let's see if we can catch something. Well, that's something. Hi, Angina. I'm not crazy about Poilievre. Well, who else do you have? I think he knows his stuff. Go watch an interview with him and Jordan Peterson. If you're not a fan of Jordan Peterson, what can I tell you? What can I tell you? I give you channels to go to, and you're like, well, I don't like that guy. I don't want to listen to him either. I don't like these people. Well, where were you when Trudeau was in power? I didn't hear you say you didn't like him. What did the Lord say to Samuel about King David? They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me as their king. And Samuel wept all night long on behalf of King Saul, because God had repented that he had made King Saul as king. Gave them what they wanted, and it didn't work out. And they rejected God. And he said to Samuel, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. But I want you to let them know what they're missing, what they're missing out. What did they miss out on? Well, the fact was it wasn't time. I think it was like barley season or something like this. And it was a little bit dry. Like, speak to them, tell them what they're going to miss as me being their king. And then tell them what it's going to require having a king. So all of a sudden the Lord rained thunder and lightning, and the whole place was wet, soaked. Meaning, if they ever got into a famine, God would intervene and make it rain so that they could have crops for the next season. And God was saying, this is what you're missing out now. You're choosing to have a king like the Edomites, like the Ammonites, like every other nation around you, and you're rejecting me. So now I honor your wish, and you're on your own. And this is the same thing with Trudeau. We voted him in. I didn't. You did. I didn't vote him in. You did. I know who I voted for. It was not Trudeau. But enough people did, even like for 3 terms, even though he said, look, guys, I don't understand you people. I'm going to increase the debt, and you're still voting for me. Why? Because I'm good looking? Because I can box a little bit? It's craziness. That's on us as a nation. That's our fault. So now we need somebody that knows economics. And I believe Pierre Poliev just has such a tough name to say. Such a tough name to say. But the guy knows his stuff when it comes to economics. And he has a plan as well. It would be great to actually see him meet with President Trump. I don't think Pierre would get pushed around as easily as Trudeau, because Trudeau's always looking for the next job. It's always like, I need to live. I need somebody to be my friend. Pierre doesn't need friends. He has friends. He has a good family. All this kind of stuff. That's not why he's doing this. He's doing this because he wants to try and fix Canada, and I think it is possible. But it's going to have to take you. It's going to have to take me to vote. What else do we have here? Christ the King, yes, for sure. Revival. I think we need to pray more now than ever. Let's see here. What else do we got here? We're called to look around and discern the times. Yep. Let's see. I think we need to cry to God to ask for mercy, and He's the one we need to look for. I agree. I agree. What else do we have here? I just don't think he's going to solve the problems we're dealing with here. I don't think people are going to live better because of him. That's fair, but you got to start somewhere. Let's see here. We have been nice and tolerant too much. The church in Canada has been silent for too long. I agree. We've been pretty quiet. It feels like we just kind of get slapped around and pushed around, and then other people are able to say, this is what Canada is. I think we need to get to a point where we got to go back to our roots and say, no, this is God's country from sea to sea, from the East Coast to the West Coast to the North to the South. We are supposed to be a healing to the nations. That was kind of the theme with our maple leaf and all this kind of stuff. Cover looks good, not the content within. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Shane. I don't think the answer is politics. Well, here's the thing. You can get all religious on this. You can get real religious on this. But you have to understand that God himself put governments into power, allows them into power. And just as easily as he can put someone in power, he can also take someone out of power. He can collapse this or allow this nation to collapse. Start all over. He can allow that. It's happened before. It's happened with very, very powerful nations before. They just collapsed over time because they didn't want anything to do with God. And instead they blamed it on Christians. Said, well, it's Christians' fault. This is why. Because we have Christians here, this is why our government collapsed, or this is why our nation fell. And this goes all the way back to Rome. Rome was blaming Christians for their demise. Meanwhile, they basically had no rules. They were killing each other in gladiator events and coliseums as entertainment. And this is where we're at. We're not physically killing each other, although you can argue we are with abortions for sure. But in theaters, we're not doing that. But we pay big dollars, big money to Hollywood to entertain us. And I think that is something that we're going to pay for as a nation corporately. We spent all our money making actors into movie stars, into people that we idolize. We spend time idolizing musicians, buying all their music, buying all their stuff, buying all their movies, their DVDs, all that kind of stuff. I've done it as well. And then we sit back and we go, wow, this is kind of weird. How come our government is so corrupt? Why is it so corrupt? Well, again, it's like what someone in the comments said, like we've been basically asleep at the wheel. We've been asleep. Let's see what else is there. Somebody said it can't get much worse. Yeah, it can get worse. It can get much worse. We can have no government at all. Let's see here. Polivier is a good buddy next door. Is a good buddy's next door neighbor in Ottawa who likes him. That's cool. That's cool. Is he good looking? I think we're talking about Trudeau here. They got, legalized pot. Isn't that interesting? That's his legacy that he's going to leave behind. We just allowed you guys to smoke as much pot as you want legally. Americans love Canada. Yeah, I think they love Canada so much they would like us to be the 51st state. Let's see here. Publisher's New Age, my husband, famous occultist. There is a legal hammer there too, but a risk once I get the hammer off my back. Okay, don't know what that is. It's all right. Hi, Daisy Joe. Welcome to the show. Martin, Trump wants Greenland. I heard about that he's trying to buy Greenland. I didn't know about Panama, Mexico, Canada, of course, that makes sense. But yeah, it's crazy, right? Crazy stuff. Okay, so let's go to Trudeau. Let's see if we can at least try and hear his speech uninterrupted. There we go. Here it is. Here comes.
Think smaller, to veer towards the hard right, and to be less ambitious for what we can be and do as a country when the world really needs Canada.
That's not an answer, though. Yes or no? Is there another leader that could be
Absolutely.
en français? Sur le leader?
Oui.
Oui. Est-ce que vous
Pierre
pouvez
Poilievre.
élaborer en français, s'il vous plaît? Merci.
Pierre Poilievre a une vision profondément petite et erronée pour ce pays, si même on accepte qu'il ait une vision, de reculer sur les droits fondamentaux, d'arrêter la défense de la lutte contre les changements climatiques, de ne pas investir dans une économie plus verte, plus inclusive, de toujours chercher des
Digital agencies, listen up. Duda introduces the power of web.
divisions entre les Canadiens plutôt que de rassembler pour faire face à l'avenir de façon optimiste et ambitieuse. C'est pas le bon choix pour les Canadiens. Et j'ai hâte de faire partie, de continuer de faire partie d'un mouvement progressiste qui va envisager un avenir meilleur pour les Canadiens sur l'optimisme et le travail que les Canadiens ont toujours fait pour bâtir un monde meilleur.
Next question. Hélène Buzetti, les cours d'information. Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Il y a 16 ans, en décembre 2008, Stephen Harper a rejeté le Parlement pour s'éviter un vote de confiance qu'il savait qu'il allait perdre parce que les 3 partis d'opposition allaient voter contre lui. Exactement comme la situation dans laquelle vous vous trouvez aujourd'hui. À l'époque, le chef libéral, Stéphane Dion, avait dit, puis je le cite ici, que c'était une entrave à la Constitution.
My mic got muted. I muted myself. It works different in Canada because in the US, you vote for 2 people, Trump or Kamala Harris. For us, and if that person wins in that state, all those electoral votes become that political party, meaning you can't mix it up. So in Canada, when we vote for a political party, we're voting for a representative in our area, in our constituents, if you will. And what could happen in Alberta is we can have somebody that's basically ranked first. And then you have another, like say the Conservatives, and then you might have a minority would be the NDP or the Green Party or whatever it is that don't really count, but they're all seats. And these people actually ship off to Ottawa and they represent all those constituents as a whole under the political party. So you're basically voting them to go to work for you in Ottawa. That's the idea. And the more people that win their seats, those become the minority party or a majority party. So let me just go back to him.
Because the very last times in the previous weeks that the confidence of the House had been tested, it had passed that confidence test, Stephen Harper continued to have the confidence of the House, and it actually would bear out because as soon as they came back from the prorogation, Stephen Harper won a confidence vote once again. So a political document or political speeches doesn't carry the kind of weight that winning a confidence vote means. But this prorogation will take us only into March, and there will be confidence votes in March in the passing of supply that will allow Parliament to weigh in on confidence in a way that is entirely in keeping with all the principles of democracy and the workings of our strong institutions.
Mais avec respect, M. Trudeau, y a-t-il pas quelque chose un peu antidémocratique de suspendre la possibilité du Parlement d'exprimer sa non-confiance le temps que votre parti se cherche un sauveur? Est-ce qu'il ne devrait pas plutôt juste se référer aux électeurs et de déclencher dès maintenant une élection?
Hélène, je pense que tu as très clairement vu comme tout le monde dans la galerie de presse.
So again, somebody asked the question. I'm just going to pause that. Somebody asked the question, said, is it run differently than in the States? Yes, because in the States, you guys basically every 4 years, it actually feels like every year you guys are doing an election, but it's every 4 years that you have an election. And I think you guys, every second year, something goes on with you guys, I think. And it's a little bit different than us because, again, if there's a vote of no confidence, we can have a snap election right away. And that doesn't give, usually you get like 30 days or something like that, or maybe a little bit more, but it's not a lot of time to get organized. And I think the Conservative Party right now in Canada has most likely anticipated this, and they're getting ready with all their fundraisers and everything, basically saying we could be in power as early as the fall. We could be voting as late as the fall. So lots of crazy stuff going on over the next few months, not to mention what's going on in the United States of America, all kinds of crazy stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign off, and we'll come back another day for another video. But I encourage you to watch the interview. Like this one's all spliced up because back and forth, English, French. I think maybe somebody will edit this together and just have it all one language. It'd be easier to hear, but it's not a long speech. You basically heard the majority of it. Is he talked with his family, his kids, and basically they agreed together that he has no friends, and that this is why he's actually resigning. And he said this is the best for the country of Canada, and it is the best. So thank you for your service. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see you in another video. Make sure and subscribe. And we'll see you later. Bye for now.